Good morning, good afternoon, welcome wherever you're coming from. I am Jerry Chapman. I am a moderator for this panel, Understanding the CISA Maturity Model and DoD Zero Trust Strategy. With me today, I have three distinguished guests, Sean Connolly, John Sims, and Randy Resnick. I'll let each of them introduce themselves. I'll start with you, Sean.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Jerry. My name's Sean Connolly. Like Jerry said, with CISA. I'm one of the co-authors of the CISA Zero Trust Maturity Model. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Sean. John?
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. I'm John Sims. I'm with CISA Cybersecurity Division and also co-author on the Zero Trust Maturity Model.
Thank you, John. Last and certainly not least, Randy?
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Randy Resnick. I'm the director of DoD's Zero Trust Portfolio Office. We got established in January 2022, so approximately 20 months in the position. Over.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through a couple of questions and commentary around zero trust drivers, executive order alignment, a couple general topics, some very specific questions around the CISA and the DoD. But as we've been hearing, zero trust is a comprehensive information security strategy with a broad architectural scope, including cloud, on-premise, and hybrid environments. It's also extendable to IoT, operational technology, particularly as well as mission-critical systems where zero trust security can be very, very important. CISA recently released the second version of this zero trust maturity model that delineates a hierarchy of zero trust functions and functionalities that organizations can leverage to develop their zero trust plans and roadmap for iterating and enhancing or iteratively enhancing their zero trust implementations. The U.S. Department of Defense has published their zero trust reference architecture, and more recently, their zero trust strategy, which is a lot of maturity-based guidance built into their iterative implementation roadmap for zero trust capabilities. First, I want to start with some very just basic stuff. And Randy, I think I'll start with you and ask you, what motivated the DoD to adopt the zero trust security strategy in 2019 before the president's executive order in 2022?
Thanks, Jerry. So I was part of the NSA team that was called to get together in a tiger team or a working group to study the zero trust problem. I spent my entire career at NSA, and then I came over here to lead up the portfolio office. So the reason why DoD and particularly NSA got involved is because we were observing for years, a decade, more than that, that the adversary was successful in exploiting DoD networks. And so the question really arose of, can we do something different, something innovative that goes above and beyond what we were doing at that time, which was perimeter defense and essentially leaving the center less defended. You know, it was kind of like not data driven. It was more network security driven. So a team was quickly put together, and it was supervised or run by now General Stanton. But at that time, he was working in Cybercom. And NSA Cybercom, DISA, and the DEIU got together. It was about 20-ish people. And we really started thinking about how could we do things differently in the cybersecurity realm. We quickly came up to the idea and philosophy of zero trust. And then the challenge for us was to actually prove that it could potentially stop an adversary. So it was supposed to be a 90-day spin. And you could see today that that spin worked out to be a major mission area for all of us. So that's really how it all began. It began based on a frustration idea to think differently. And we got a group together that really were all out-of-the-box thinkers. And we really developed the whole idea of zero trust expansion at that time. And that's how the DoD basically got into Zero Trust.
Awesome. That's really, really interesting. And to kind of lean that towards, the CISA side, was there significant interest, Sean or John, either one of you, was there significant interest in Zero Trust in the DHS or the CISA, and in some of the other civilian agencies prior to the executive order? If so, what were those drivers?
Yeah, I'll start. Yeah, there were some organic efforts going across the civilian side. Let's see, like from the NIST perspective, 800-207 Zero Trust Special Pub that came out, I was one of the co-authors of that document. But before that document, NIST was holding a number of working groups. Randy, I think you were there. I know there was a number of the NSA team, DoD, a number of the civilian agencies were there. And these were just more like working groups, just talking what's possible. I can even remember going back before that, when Kindervag released his No More Chewy Centers paper, just the way that was resonating around some of the agencies themselves. So it's been, or like I said, organically propelled itself. And then outside the federal efforts, ACT-IAC, which is one of those coalitions, they released a white paper, I think in 2018 or 2019. They were led by Stephen Hernandez, the Department of Education, CISO. So again, there's a number of efforts going around. Randy was mentioning like the perimeter security and how originally a lot of the focus was on that hard perimeter, that network focus. And we knew, from the federal perspective, or more from like the orchestration perspective, that there still need to be layers of security inside the network. But really a lot of the guidance coming out was more toward that federal or that network perimeter. But I think, there are a number of incidents John could probably speak to a little bit better. Then the discussions really ramped up. Like Randy was talking about 2019, 2020, what can we do differently? So, John, I'll pass it over to you for the softball.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So, Jerry, I think going back to the OPM data breach back in 2015, it was like one of the most significant cyber events that we had, data breaches in the federal government, and exposed over 30,000 records that were very sensitive in nature. And, from that, we developed a high value asset program through the support with OMB and DHS. And it really gave us a chance to look at, some of our most important systems in the federal government. We looked at the trends after doing, testing and architectural reviews against those systems coming into 2019, 2020. There were a number of things that we saw that really, if you look at it today, align very clearly with the Zero Trust maturity model, but also the DoD reference architecture. And so I think that, coupled with SolarWinds, were really key events that really just caused us to take a step back and, to Randy's point, really just take stock in the fact that perimeter security was no longer effective.
Thank you. And I'll just add, I think it was far more than just the notion of defense in depth, right? Because that's always a question you get when you start talking about Zero Trust. Okay, so to continue,
Jerry, could I just throw one more thing in? And the whole idea of VPNs upset the balance, where we didn't even know where people were coming in from, and the VPNs made the entire network very vulnerable. And that was another really big reason why we needed to do something beyond perimeter defense or network security that we were doing at that time.
No, absolutely. And Jason and I talked a lot about that in our book around, what should you do with VPNs? I'll leave that part of the commentary out of it, but yeah, absolutely. To continue down that, the U.S. released a national cybersecurity strategy earlier this year. How does that align or support or even leverage Zero Trust? Sean or John, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. I mean, it's pretty clear in the references and Pillar 1 in particular, where the administration's really focused on reinforcing the importance of Executive Order 14028. And Zero Trust architecture and Zero Trust principles are listed in there on a number of different areas where, it's just, restating the need to properly protect federal networks, systems and data. But it also really has, reinforced, the importance of following 2209, which is the Federal Zero Trust Strategy. So I think there's a very tight linkage. It's something that if you look at the document, you can see where there's opportunities to continue to evolve. And since it is in the strategy, it's not like a short-term set of events that's going to get us there. This is a long-term activity. Sean, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think the national cybersecurity strategy that was released earlier this year is more like that grand strategy, across the whole of government, both DoD and civilian. How are we supporting just the cyber universe as it is, clarifying like when an incident happens at an organization, who do they need to contact, and those type of procedures. And then like what John was talking about, tactically on the how that government agencies operate their own networks. That's where it's more you lean into the Executive Order 14028, and then again even more tactically the Zero Trust Strategy 2209, explaining almost like step by step for different the pillars how agencies will need to move forward on a zero trust journey. So I think all three different levels help both complement and augment each other.
I think we should applaud the whole idea that a strategy was even written at the national level, because if it wasn't, I think, for the somewhat success of Zero Trust and how the FedCiv and the DoD were collaborating to approach this problem, and real progress has been made, likely the strategy might not have been written as quickly as it has been. And the fact that a strategy is written prompts one to have to update that strategy on whatever frequent basis, yearly or whatever. So the fact that we have something now down for folks to read and to follow and to talk or allude to zero trust and cybersecurity at such a high level is unprecedented. It never occurred before. So this is all good for the community and the nation. Because you hear it, everybody, at least in the DoD, cybersecurity is national security. And I believe that. And so the fact that this was expressed in such a way really makes everybody from DoD and the intel community all the way down to the defense industrial base and private industry to really start thinking about how to improve their cybersecurity. So, bravo to the fact that it was even written, and I hope there's updates after this.
Absolutely, and Randy, it's interesting because one of the really compelling parts of that document, and one of the compelling parts of that was in the executive order, they mentioned specifically accountability and other controls for vendors, CSPs, for data and information in the cloud. Is the DoD Portfolio Management Office doing any work with the major CSPs on Zero Trust to help support this?
We actually are. So when we came out with our strategy, we came out with essentially 3 courses of action to implement Zero Trust. One of them is a brownfield approach, augmenting what one would already have on the ground to achieve the outcomes that we're trying to achieve. The other one is commercial cloud, which is our course of action 2, and then private cloud is course of action 3. We set a goal of stopping the adversary, and we worked our way, we reverse engineered how to do that, which we believe will stop the adversary, and we mandated that the DoD needed to hit that by the end of 2027. So we're fairly aggressive there. So when it comes to course of action 2, commercial cloud, in the DoD, we have engaged with the 4 CSPs, the cloud service providers, to see whether or not they could do Zero Trust in their clouds. And we're running through all 4 over a period of time, and we're assessing them to see how strong those configurations are. So we're making excellent progress. We've already assessed 2 of them, and the other 2 will be assessed in the next couple of months. Once we get final reports and conclusions, we'll announce the results. And if the results show that it could stop an adversary either at what we call target level or advanced level, that will be known. It will be publicized. and that would be what we spin up in the DoD from that point forward to at least begin the start with a zero trust cloud that we know has a configuration, a base configuration that can resist an adversary.
Awesome. I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to customers in this commercial space, right? Really around how the cloud is really focused and helps support this. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some of that come out of that. Sean or John, is the CISA doing anything along these lines?
Sure. So a couple things. So first, like CISA ourselves, what John and I write and some of our colleagues write is applicable to all, I don't say applicable, but like it can be used by all federal agencies on the civilian side. So we write material that has to be vendor agnostic, can be used by a variety of CSPs. I think now in FedRAMP, there are over a couple hundred packages in our material that comes out, whether it's the zero maturity model. We also wrote a cloud security technical reference architecture. Those type of guidances need to be used by all. So when you ask about like how we are supporting, usually what we do from CISA is we do collaborative working groups with the White House, the Office of Management and Budget, the team that wrote like the executive order and the Zero Trust Strategy, out of the federal CIO, Claire Matarona's team, or the federal CISO, Krista Rush's team. We'll work closely with that OMB team and then agencies as they are using different services. And we'll do, right now, OMB's leading these efforts called Community of Action, where we are piloting different solutions with agencies and vendors. So I can give you like just a quick example. On the, let's see, it's the Zero Trust Strategy, the OMB release, there is a requirement for encrypted DNS. A lot of DNS vendors do encrypted DNS for what we call north-south traffic, what may be leaving the perimeter. But what may be more internally, the east-west traffic, some of the vendors still don't have encrypted DNS between their own systems. So again, through that community of action, there's a DNS community of action, and Brock Okan from our team is helping to lead. We are working with some agencies as they work with their vendors to bring out new solutions to encrypt that DNS that is that internal type traffic. So that's how some of the ways we work with the agencies and the vendors to help push the community forward.
And I'll just add, Jerry, real quick, what Randy was talking about with the testing that they're doing. I think that it's the collaboration that we have between the two organizations is really going to allow us to reduce the daylight between our approaches. And so we view the work that's being done over at the DoD is very critical to the future implementation and some strategic opportunities that we have going into the future. So that's about all I can add to that.
Awesome, thank you.
If I could add on, John, Jerry, just real quick. So the collaboration, I didn't mention that, is really high bandwidth and it's excellent. It promotes interoperability between zero trust strategies in implementation. But what I also see in sharing of the information, particularly when it comes to pilot activity, is that the DoD does have the funds. We are aggressive. We are doing these pilots and we're sharing all the information. So as I see it, the DoD is really bearing all the risk, absorbing all the cost, and really getting the best and brightest to assess it and to certify or at least validate that the configurations are as strong as possible to resist an adversary. So when we get to that point, the FedCiv community and others could reap the benefits of that. And so I think that's a great synergy that goes on between the DoD and the FedCiv. It removes the duplication of effort, and it really plays to our strengths, and it speeds up potentially the FedCiv move to zero trust by just riding just slightly behind the DoD and what we come up with.
Awesome. So if I think about that, one of the questions come to mind is, we all talk about zero trust, but how is this supporting the reducing the likelihood of a security incident? using Zero Trust to help, how would Zero Trust help reduce that impact in general?
So the principles of Zero Trust come to bear here. As you go forth on your journey with Zero Trust, you're starting to lay down microsegmentation, least privilege, certain role-based and attribute-based access controls. So as you start implementing these capabilities within the Zero Trust architecture, you start creating real barriers from an adversary's perspective to start moving laterally. Their freedom of movement begins to shrink. And when you achieve in DoD, target level Zero Trust, it shrinks so much that they pretty much can't break out of the first attack that they conducted. So they'll be successful on the first endpoint, perhaps, that they exploited, John Smith. But they won't be able to go beyond John Smith's rights based on policy and rules, because they won't be able to enumerate the network. They won't, in other words, see the network. They can't map it. They don't know where to go. They certainly don't see any data. And it will be very visible. The noise, regardless of the level, will be identified and noticed. So that's the reason why we believe a fully, laid out Zero Trust solution, certainly at the target level, ought to stop an adversary. And that's the approach that we want to get to in DoD. So all the attacks, theoretically, like the ransomware attacks, the Log4j, Colonial Pipeline, even the ones that were mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, had it attacked a Zero Trust infrastructure, the likelihood of a breach or the results of what occurred would be probably not occurring, or certainly extremely minimized.
Awesome. Sean or John, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that I think that, just kind of tying this back to the question about cloud, I think cloud, provides us with great opportunities to advance Zero Trust, in a shorter time frame than some of the on-prem implementations. But I also think the cloud native capabilities are setting us up to really advance where we're going architecturally, and applying those cloud native capabilities to provide the types of services we need to implement Zero Trust. And I'll just add that, what Randy was talking about in terms of having the awareness of what's going on when the event is occurring to take action on it, is something that we've really struggled with for years, and I'm sure that's not unique to the federal civilian government, but if you look at SolarWinds, it was occurring for a very long time before we really noticed it. And to me, the key to the visibility that we're going to achieve through advanced implementation of Zero Trust is to really identify that and limit the blast radius.
That's right.
Yeah, the one thing I'll add, we haven't talked about a bunch, but before Zero Trust, in terms of civilian agencies, the main type of way for protections was called the Trusted Internet Connection Program. It's still now available. It's called TIC for short. For what was TIC 1, TIC 2, going all the way back to the Bush administration through Obama and up through the Trump administration, was more perimeter focused, that traditional castle and moat. And really what it was just shrinking the attack surface down in terms of bringing all those type of connections. Randy's talked about VPN connections, partner connections, DMZs, all of these finite firewall stacks and these TIC access points. Well, it did shrink the attack surface down, but in reality, a lot of the technological solutions really wasn't positioned in terms of security best to be able to protect the data or the applications behind there. And so when you start to see the expansion of cloud in the last few years, it really forced that discussion to change. And nothing against having the perimeter, but just the way that the networks of today, we say like the networks are more amorphous and porous, right? The networks are more changing every day, and there's a lot more ways that for those connections. 5 years ago, you really didn't have to worry about direct messages or your CEO being on Twitter or something like that. And those are all ways you're seeing adversaries take advantage of to get into networks. So whether it's the hybrid workforce now, or the way we're talking about customer data access strategies, the diverse multi-partner systems that are now needed, or even just multi-cloud in general. That solution before, the tick one, tick two, castle and moat, just wasn't going to work in this. So this is really where the new discipline is being able to applied holistically and comprehensively across those different environments where we couldn't 5-10 years ago.
Awesome. One thing one thing that comes to mind as I listen to all three of you is I talk a lot about implicit deny with explicit allow, and the visibility and the capabilities to support that today in the zero trust world. I think that's the case where we get to a lot of things. Randy, you talked about all the breaches and everything that happened. Absolutely. We get to that point, we can definitely decrease the impact and of those security incidents that do happen across the board. Enough of my commentary. Let's continue with, I think, understanding the ZT pillars and capabilities are important. So I'm going to ask, anyone can jump in when I finish. Both CISA and the DoD documents depict pillars of zero trust, and they talk about sets of cross-cutting capabilities across those pillars. But if there are some minor differences, there are some minor differences in how they're named and depicted. Are there any significant or substantive differences between the CISA and the DoD models in these regards?
So, in the DoD Zero Trust strategy and model that we have, we express that Zero Trust is a 7-pillar model. The cross-cutting is not very clearly outlined, but it alludes, when you read the strategy or the implementation piece of the strategy, that there's cross-cutting communications that are happening between all the pillars. So you do have this communication that's happening between one pillar and essentially all the rest, depending on what's being asked or being occurring in the network. So we have 7. Mostly they're the same words or the same description as what CISA has come up with. In my own words, and I'll have Sean describe it in his words, in my own words, or the way I see it, is the two models are identical because CISA has 5, and then I believe it has 2 foundational cross-cutting things. The only slight difference is that CISA believes, or again, Sean, correct me, that there's 2 cross-cutting across the 5. And in DoD, we believe it's all 7. It's all philosophical. The bottom line is that we could describe a enterprise network the same way with the descriptors of 7 for DoD, 7 for CISA, and the solution to get to zero trust are essentially the same. So it's just a model. It doesn't really affect the approach. Sean?
Yeah, I'll start, and then John, feel free to jump in. So like Randy was talking about, in the end, we're all trying to get to the same goal. And honestly, I think now we know now, like 2+ years since we released our maturity model, and DoD's released theirs. I don't think we knew this would cause this type of discussion. Randy, respectfully, we had this question thrown at us all the time, and we're always trying to say we're not. Yeah. From our perspective, and again, not trying to challenge or anything on the DoD side, we look at those 5 pillars as Randy was talking about on our side: identity, device, application, data, network. Those have been industries that have been around for 20 years plus. It's pretty easy, I think, for community to understand what we need when we talk about the device pillar, or what we mean by the identity pillar. And ideally, as one moves up the maturity model or advances out in their zero trust strategy, some of those pillars start to collapse, like the data, the device, the application kind of, start to support each other in ways that they didn't when the old traditional model. The difference, though, like Randy was talking about, was those cross-cutting capabilities. Again, DoD has it more as pillars themselves. We have the automation pillar, the automation capability, visibility capability, and the governance capability. And like Randy was saying, we just kind of matrix those across each of those 5 pillars, stitch them in. But you could hear Randy talking his side. That's how they do it too, that cross-cutting capability. So some of this is just, unfortunately, we're getting lost in semantics or aesthetics. And there just hasn't been a right way to figure this out. But I think we're both saying the same thing, just slightly differently. But John, anything you want to add?
Yeah, the only thing I'll just add is I think one of the key drivers, and I'm just reflecting on some early conversations right after EO 1402A came out, is we're just looking at how, based on what had occurred just months ago with SolarWinds, how we could set our agencies up to really start examining, the visibility, the automation and orchestration, as well as the governance, as they're trying to strategize on how they're going to advance to zero trust. And to be honest with you, I think those are the key ingredients to get lost in the discussion about architecture and technology and capabilities. And we really wanted those agencies to consider that along the way, because, if you look at, the failure of governance that we've actually seen over the last 20 years, where we're still focused on the blocking and tackling with, patching and vulnerability management. Those are key considerations to factor into how you're going to mature and evolve your organization culturally to advance zero trust. So I think that was one of the driving forces. But at the end of the day, as Randy and Sean, indicated, it's really about the outcomes. It's really about, the effectiveness of what we're doing, irrespective of the way the picture looks in the documents.
So I'll just ask a general question, because the way I describe this in myself when I talk through this with people is it's really integration across all of those pillars based upon the attack surface. That's the bottom line and the way I look at it. So is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Ray. No, go finish up.
Okay, so I just wanted to reiterate a little subtlety that John mentioned. It's the outcomes. So, DoD, prior to Zero Trust, I would say was very much checkbox oriented, and it forced industry to deliver products and services that conformed to the DoD need to check boxes of, I could do this capability. I have this control. I'm checking up on this. And so we're doing this. And we thought that was progress. And when you look at the attacks that have been occurring, our portfolio office thought that was just not working, just as much as perimeter defense wasn't working. So we flipped it over and we said, instead of doing it the old way, which we know is not working, and it's unclear whether or not that's actually part of the contribution to the reason why we're failing, we said, okay, we're going to do zero trust, but we're going to measure outcomes. We're going to describe the outcomes that we want to achieve, and let industry then innovate on their products and services and team with other vendors to deliver to the DoD the outcomes that we seek to stop an adversary. And that has resonated very much so in industry that's delivering now zero trust capability. Sean?
Yeah, thanks, Randy. One thing I want to mention also, the CISA Zero Trust Maturity Model, this is just to help organizations understand what we CISA means when we're talking to them about the maturity model. It's not meant to be like the only way. Repeatedly throughout the maturity model, we state there are many paths or many ways to move out on the maturity model. But this is just to help when we're talking to our federal agencies, but we are starting to talk to a wider range of international organizations, other public sector organizations at the state, local level, and then just corporations themselves, so they can understand when we mean visibility, this is what we mean by it. But in the end, we hear how agencies or the community is adopting maturity models. So, going back to like Randy talking about their 7 pillars or our 5 pillars and 3 cross-cutting capabilities, are our colleague Jerry Karen, Department of Commerce. He split the difference and just created a 6-pillar maturity model for their needs. That's great. It's perfect. They build it out to how they need it. So that's our daily what we're just trying to help people understand what we mean by it, but not meant for it to be measured against specifically.
Awesome. Well, let's move a little forward. Randy, I have we've heard that the DoD has drafted a zero trust overlay for the NIST 853 controls. Can you talk a little bit about that, and when will it be finalized, and how will it be used?
Sure, Jerry. So I'm probably going back to January, February of 2023 when we started thinking through, okay, how are we going to ATO or authorize a new zero trust network within the DoD? So the DoD has the RMF process. The RMF process, you have to show a lot of evidence of certain 800-53 controls that are met, among other things, and then that goes to a authorizing official to eventually say yes or no to turning on that network or infrastructure. So in zero trust, we realize that this is new. This is a new concept to them. And so does the current RMF fully describe zero trust in a way that they could give a thumbs up or a thumbs down? And we came quickly to the conclusion that it does not. So we set out to zero-base review the 853 Rev 5, literally from the ground up. And what we came up with in the end, and again, this started in probably February through July, was a list of controls that go above and beyond slightly. There's a gap that goes above and beyond what is currently implemented in the DoD. So we realized that it really was important to describe and publish a zero trust overlay that describes the controls that one must implement to implement zero trust at both the target level and then the additional controls to get to advanced level. So we're done with that internal process. We went around the DoD to gather comments on it. We incorporated those comments and settled all of them. And we're in the final throes of polishing it off. So I'm hoping that we could make our document published sometime in late October or early November. And that would be publicly distributed. And that would be the ZT overlay for the Department of Defense. With that, our intention is to also deliver it to the CNSS and have it formally accepted as another overlay. So that's our process, that's our timing, and that was the reason why we even began doing it. And the team that worked on it, they did a great job, and I think everybody that takes a look at it is going to be pleased.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing. I've seen a little bit of that, I think, but yeah, it's very exciting. So let's talk a little bit about the DoD versus civilian agencies, and even CISA with civilian agencies. So the DoD reference architecture and strategy delineates a set of capabilities and activities with different implementation timeframes that seem to be grouped based upon a maturity level. Can you describe how the concept of climbing the maturity model ladder is integral to the DoD strategy, and whether the approach also includes tackling all pillars sequentially or in parallel?
Okay, so when we put all 7 pillars together, the consequence of that was and is that we believe all 7 pillars have or share the same weighting for implementation. So from an adversarial perspective, and maybe this is some of my background, and I'm sure a lot of people's backgrounds that are listening to us, the adversary is going to choose the weakest section or link in order to perform their attack. And so if we focus on, let's say, 5 of the pillars to implement at various rates, but we kind of ignore the other 2 pillars, that's going to likely be the area that the adversary is going to try to penetrate. And so from a cyber defense perspective, from a objective and subjective point of view, we would want to implement zero trust with an equal weighting. It's never going to be perfect, but an equal investment across all the pillars simultaneously. So that's our philosophy. And so you won't see a priority of what pillar to do first or second or third. We go at it all at once, and especially because each one of these pillars kind of depends on the other as you go up in terms of implementation or maturity. Now, getting to the maturity piece, DoD calls our success point target. What is not fully understood, we probably didn't write it clearly, but it'll be corrected, is that our definition of target is essentially the achievement of intermediate level zero trust. So way back when NSA began in 2019, we quickly got to agreement that we were going to not disturb the maturity model that already existed in John Kindervag's paper, which was basic, intermediate, advanced. And we said, why not? It's the same thing. So we kept basic, intermediate, advanced. And that was actually what is now in the ZT reference architecture version 1, and I believe version 2. When I got here in DoD, there was a big discussion on whether or not we would keep basic and intermediate. And the discussion quickly became a discussion around whether or not we wanted DoD to have an ability to rest at a certain plateau, which was lower than we needed to be to stop an adversary. So we were, in other words, concerned that people would reach the milestone of basic, which is, let's say, halfway through where we needed them to be, and then they would pause. And they would pause for a certain period of time, and that was not good. So what we decided to do is to hide the basic plus intermediate, essentially the complete achievement of intermediate, and combine them and call it target. Target has a military sort of flavor to it. You hit the target, you know you're there. If you're not quite at target, you're sub-target. That's meaningful in the DoD. People understand it. You don't have to explain it. And so we define target as stopping the adversary. And that was and the achievement of intermediate, even within NSA back in 2019, was the achievement of the ability to stop the adversary. That was the whole goal of achieving intermediate. We kept advanced. So DoD has target and then advanced. And that's exactly how we went about it. And that was shared with the CISA DHS defensive community, OMB. As we were developing this process, we shared everything. Sean? John?
John or John?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and I agree with what Randy was just talking about. I think one of the things that we also struggled with in our initial version of the Zero Trust Maturity Model version 1, we had traditional, advanced, and optimal. And so we started really looking at, the request for comments from industry and other partners. It was clear that there's a big leap between that perimeter focused security of traditional and where we're going with advanced and then optimal. So one of the things we looked at is adding an intermediary step between traditional and advanced. We originally called it basic, and in conversations with our peers at OMB, it was like, well, to Randy's point, we don't want them to think that, well, they reached the basic level of zero trust, so let's call it a day. So we took that into consideration and made some changes to it, and ended up on initial. And I think if you look at it, it really gives a little bit of credit for those agencies that are really trying to hit those advanced and optimal targets, but there's a long-term effort. So I think in the context of where we have to focus, which is basically in the context of M2209, there were very specific tasks per pillar that we were looking for agencies to get traction on to move out in zero trust direction. So I think that if you look at the mapping, it's kind of like scattered between the initial advanced mostly, but those were key drivers for us. And Sean, did you have anything you want to add?
No, I just think, going back to, we mentioned Kindervag's Chewy Center paper. When that came out, a lot of the community was talking about network access control, NAC. And it was looked like that was going to be one of the, I think at the time, maybe the optimal, maybe for the network pillar, like when somebody put it there. 10 plus years later, a lot of zero trust discussions don't even include NAC anymore. Nothing across NAC. There's still value to it. Where we're going with this is technology's going to change, and people need to be understanding what optimal is today may only be advanced 3-5 years from now. The goalpost will move whether people want it to or not, and we just need to be adaptable and have that type of fabric that can adjust to those changes. So just lessons learned again from being in this industry for a couple decades now, and how we need to, when we put these frameworks out, to ensure that's just not something where it's codified for a long period of time.
Yeah, I think you don't want to date. Sorry, go ahead, Randy.
Right, Jerry. Absolutely. So that's why I think it really resonates to talk about outcomes. Talk about the what we want to see in the network rather than the how. Technology is going to change. Innovation is going to happen. Crazy things are going to occur that make that change the how. There's constant change, but the what we want to achieve, that should relatively be stable. So I think that's the winning formula for the government, is to describe what we need to get done, and then let industry innovate on that.
Awesome. So, I mean, all this is really great discussion, and the one thing that I'm hearing a lot of similarities, and obviously there's some minor differences between way DoD and civil agencies would go about it. I mean, while the approach is, there might be 7 pillars or 5 pillars and cross-cutting, whatever the maturity model looks like. Everyone falls under the same executive orders. The bottom line, right? Everyone's all part of the government team. Everyone falls under the same executive orders. How would you compare or contrast the DoD versus the civilian agencies for zero trust implementation and governance? Sean, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll take the first swing at that. One thing also, we've talked a lot about security, but honestly, when we work with the agencies, the security is just part of their modernization efforts, right? And so both John and myself, we work with the Technology Modernization Fund, the TMF Fund. Just for context, the TMF Fund, it was $1 billion that was allocated by Congress, and between OMB and GSA, they work with agencies as agencies submit proposals, say we want to migrate this system, we want to modernize this solution. And so through federal CIOs and CISOs, and again, John and I also help with it, we help those proposals that come in from the agencies. And cybersecurity can be definitely part of the conversation, but it goes that greater discussion of maybe just modernizing legacy infrastructure, maybe it's digital transformation. We've already done a lot toward the workforce transformation, but ideally, when we're doing this, we just want to hear how cybersecurity and zero trust helps augment or complement what the agency's mission is, whatever it is, whether it's Veterans Affairs and helping veterans, whether it's the Coast Guard, whether it's Department of Justice. So that's really where we want to hear. And the more that security is just kind of layered into those conversations versus being just a separate discussion point altogether, I think is what we look for in some of these proposals.
John?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things I would say is, the civilian, agencies have very diverse missions. And, Randy said it a couple of times, with the DoD, they're very focused on the warfighter. And that's one of the key areas where I think they can unify what they're doing for resource management, whether it's budget or the human capital to really throw at this problem. But to me, it's making sure that there are clear lanes within the agency to support what we're trying to achieve through the executive order, the National Cyber Strategy, or M2209. And I think that's one thing that really stuck with me listening to Mr. Sherman, the CIO of DoD, just laser focused on zero trust. And we don't have that one agency CIO for the FedCiv other than Ms. Mortana, to really align our resources to the degree necessary, like they have in DoD. At the end of the day, OMB does their level best to make sure there's structural alignment between resourcing plans for the federal agencies as well as DoD. But within the DoD agency, they have the ability to unify that and stay focused. And I think that's a key differentiator for us on the civilian side, where we've got 23 CFO, very large agencies, some of which are very federated with diverse missions that really make it challenging, even within those large federated agencies, to do some of the strategic planning on that shorter timeline and horizon that the DoD is able to do. And I would say that's got to be one of the biggest ones that stand out, at least in my opinion.
Awesome.
So I would agree with John. It's really a big challenge in the FedCiv area. Like I mentioned earlier, the adversary is going to choose the simplest, easiest way in. And when you look at each individual agency in FedCiv, if they don't all do zero trust equally with the same strategy at the same time, they're going to, pick off the one that is a little or a lot behind. And so, again, that's why DoD has a different thought process, that all of DoD, the services and the agencies and the DAFs need to do it all at the same time. We do have an advantage in that the SecDef and the DepSecDef, they own the budget, and they could allocate resources according to priority and the need. If we are cyber attacked, mission is threatened. Mission could stop. And when you talk about in a military sense that you can't perform your mission, that's life or death. They can't literally do their job, and that's unacceptable. So in the DoD, everybody has been taking the journey of zero trust extremely seriously. It's been very well received. People understand what they need to do, and we have been resourced, I hope, to do the job in the time frame that we have set out to do it. I think a challenge in the FedCiv, and I hope it's solved, is how we could essentially do the same within the FedCiv community to, obtain the budgets and give the budgets that are required to focus on cybersecurity as much as the DoD is focusing on cybersecurity.
Awesome. Good stuff. And I've heard something, I continually hear the word mission. In the commercial space, I relate that to the business and the business objectives. And that's right. Same conversation, exact same conversation, just different terminology. Okay, so, kind of coming to the end of this a little bit, I kind of want to just ask, what's next in terms of zero trust implementation and guidance? Randy, I'll start with you.
So at least for us in the next year, we're expecting implementation plans to come to us actually at the end of October. That's 1 year after the publication of our strategy. It was written in the NDAA that 1 year after the strategy is published, the services and agencies need to deliver to us their implementation plans for how they're going to achieve zero trust, at least for us to the target level within the deadline. So we're going to be inundated with probably 47 to 50 reports. And we're going to have to analyze them, essentially give thumbs up, thumbs down. There'll be an iterative process. You won't see me or my team for months. Probably will come up for air in January, given the holidays. But that's going to basically describe to us how the DoD elements are going to do and approach zero trust. Also happening in the DoD in fiscal 24 for us is that we are going to be conducting as many as I've calculated just this morning, probably 10 pilot activities across our COAs 1, 2, and 3, which will demonstrate operational successes to achieve target level using various configurations of commercial solutions, whether it's 4 or 5 vendors coming together, whether it's CSPs showing us what they could do in terms of zero trust in the cloud, or companies demonstrating for us private cloud and course of action 3. So we have 10 as of right now. Our limitation here is assessment resources. We just need to build up that capacity because there's a competition for assessors, red teamers, blue teamers, purple teamers. That's the sort of skill sets that I'm talking about. So we have a very, very busy fiscal 24. As much as we could share, we will. But that's what we have going ahead. And of course, you'll see the 853 publication, hopefully in late October, and perhaps even an update to the strategy. We haven't worked on it yet. But the strategy come next October, a year from now, will be 2 years old, and it might be time for the next update.
Awesome. Exciting stuff coming out of the DoD. Cool. Sean or John?
Yeah, I'll touch on some of the things we're considering for 24 in the context of guidance. So we looked at version 2 of the Zero Trust Maturity Model as that document we set up so it could kind of stand the test of time, so to speak. And one of the things we're looking at is how we can provide some greater detail in the context of going into elaborating on the pillars themselves to provide a little bit more tactical guidance and use cases. But the one area that we've also been working on just to try and start framing out some ideas is how we're going to apply zero trust to operational technology. And so we've done a little bit of work on that. I know Randy's team has been working on that as well as Department of Energy. And I think that one of the things we're going to probably want to do is look at how we can collectively, work together to share ideas on how we can approach OT and in some cases IoT, because those are going to be key and critical areas for us. And so, that's like the big one, I think, for us. Sean, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll finish up. I think for all of us being technologists, it's kind of fun for us to focus on the tech stack and talk about that. But really, a lot of this comes down to how we talk about zero trust as a discipline or a different mindset. So on both teams here, we're looking at how we can help the workforce understand what we mean by zero trust and how this is different than earlier security paradigms. When you read DoD's, I think it's in your strategy, right? The first goals for workforce transformation, Randy, is that it?
Yes.
Or,
yep.
I think that's awesome.
It's culture.
Yeah. Just to put that as the first one, acknowledge that, I think is great. So acknowledge I'm on the both sides talking about how we can help propel. So on the CISA side, we've had a number of training cohorts where we've worked with agencies, brought some of their SMEs or some people that may just be new to cyber or new to what we're trying to do in zero trust. We've had these multi-week training classes, and they get certifications about what zero trust means. I think we're looking to expand those type of solutions. I know on the DoD side, they have DIU, right, Randy, that has some courses available. So there's a training. Yes. The training is definitely one of the focuses. Yeah, thank you. That's it. The training, I think, is one of the ones we're looking to push out. Go ahead, Randy.
And JKO online, at least for the DoD.
Okay.
Awesome. I mean, this has been very informative and a lot of really great information being shared here. I'm just going to ask in 30 seconds, Sean, Randy, John, each of you get 30 seconds. Give me a closing thought, what you really want to leave with the audience. Sean, we'll start with you.
Yeah, please take a look. There's a number of documents. I'll leave Randy. You can talk about on the DoD side. There's a number of documents available on the CISA website towards Zero Trust. There's also, I think it's zerotrust.cyber.gov has a number of the documents collected between the different agencies. So again, those are a couple of resources to help anyone understand what we mean when we talk about Zero Trust.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Randy?
I think that we are now in a phase of cybersecurity that is the most innovative next generation thinking process in my entire career. I'm showing my age, but I started in the late 80s at NSA before there was even browser. The browser came out in 92. So I really, my whole career, followed the technology of how the internet formed and cybersecurity in general, about all of that. And now I find myself at a new wave. This new wave will, I'm sure, take industry the next 20 plus years or more. It's a different way of thinking. You really need to think out of the box. It'll be a lot easier for people that are in college and being trained right now, younger people that are not so trained in the old way of thinking about cybersecurity. And it's going to be a culture change to existing workforce to be upskilled. But there's a lot of smart people in the DoD and the FedCiv. I have high confidence it'll get done. The documents are all out there and we're sharing. And we will be successful here. And, working with Sean and John and others it's been fabulous. So very pleased about our progress and the nation's progress getting to Zero Trust.
Thank you, Randy. John?
Yeah, I just want to, just kind of link some things together here. Over the past couple of months, we've released guidance on secure by design and secure by default. And I think that, as we look at modernization and how we can use modernization to support where we're trying to go with Zero Trust, I think those are critical areas to really lean in on. So I would say that, the modernization component of IT in general, in terms of like where we're going into the future, is very important. And to Randy's point about the students today that are in high school and college, everything we can do to reinforce that fresh thinking for cyber and for IT is really critical. And I think AI and some of those initiatives play critical and pivotal roles in terms of they're going to position us going into the future.
It's very exciting times.
Absolutely. And the one thing that I spent a lot of time talking about is, and I think this panel and the conversation has really just firmed this up even more. Zero Trust is not a buzzword. There's a lot of meat behind this, and it's something that we have to, I think we just keep moving forward with, and it is a paradigm shift. It is a change in how we're thinking. All the new technology and others are just really driving us to continue to do what we do, and it's very, very exciting times. So with that, thank you, Sean. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, John, for your time today. This has been an amazing panel, an amazing discussion, and I'd like to thank everyone that's watching or listening. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.